Everyone. Welcome to the final week of the 8 realms of employee wellness. Um, yeah, it's been a long run. Doing this every week for 8 weeks has been a lot. I was like, what did I get myself into? So, um, but I'm excited about it. I like doing these. So let's dive in here. Okay, so today we're doing accountability, the last one. So we'll do a regulation activity first. We'll talk about employee wellness. We'll talk about accountability, our assessment tool, and I'll give some resources, how 10 can help, also steps you can take on your own without us. So this will be valuable for everybody. So, first, this is one of my favorite regulation activities because it's very nurturing to the self. Um, you're going to take your hands and you can just follow along and put one here on your forehead and take the other one and put it right here at the base of the back of your head. And just you can close your eyes and just apply a little bit of gentle pressure in a way that feels comfortable to you. And we'll just take a few deep breaths together. Yeah, that one's really nice. And it's a nice reminder that we can always nurture ourselves. You know, a lot of times when we're really stressed, and this can come up in our romantic relationships, it can come up at work, it can come up with our friends, it can come up while we're out in the world, while we're running late to catch the metro to work. Um, and we can get really dysregulated. And the whole thing about regulation is to remind ourselves that we're the adult in charge now, and we can soothe our, maybe our inner child that may have suddenly been triggered to feel unsafe. And so this is such a nice one because it's really like something you might do to a baby, but you're doing it for yourself. Like, I've got you, I'm here with you, we're safe now, we can do this. And it's a nice thing to remind yourself of, that you can be there for yourself when you need someone. So you've seen, if you've been following along the last 8 weeks, you've seen this slide. Employee mental health, mental wellness, and mental health and mental illness are really important, and workers in the United States are really not doing well right now. Um, and it's kind of scary, actually, that 84% of respondents in this 2021 survey said their workplace conditions had been the cause of at least one mental health challenge. And who experienced that, in the past few years? Certainly almost everyone I know, 84%. That's all of us, pretty much. I'm sort of like, if you have one of these places that's not harming your mental health, tell us where you are, what that's about. And so this is bad. And so we founded 10 Collective this year to be a part of the change and be a part of the solution. All of us who founded 10 Collective, we are a network of consultants. So there's a network of us. We were consulting um, agencies and nonprofits who work with children and families. And we were working with these community movements, these nonprofits, these agencies, social workers, et cetera, and realizing that employers were not taking care of their employees in the same way that they were asking people to take care of these children and families. And that's obviously not fair, but it also doesn't work. So if you have a stressed employee, they're going to give really stressed service. to the people that they're trying to help. And then it's going to end up being not help after all. So we do a little bit of everything at 10 Collective. We can help you write your trauma-informed program to serve the populations and communities that you serve, but we can also help you use these same trauma-informed care principles to improve employee wellness. And that's why we created this employee wellness self-assessment tool. And so you can go to our website, tend-collective.com, and get the whole PDF. You can take the whole quiz and get your results and see how you did and what that means about your workplace, and then come to us and see if we can help. So we've gone through, it's so exciting to be at the end here. We've gone through all the realms. Our wonderful graphic designer, Mindy Atwood, created this wheel, and the 10 Collective team, which if you go to our website and click on team, you can see who we all are. We collaborated to make this happen. And so far we've gone through psychological safety, structure, role definition and authority, meaning, productivity and impact, collaboration and positive regard, autonomy and leadership style, growth, reflection and mental health, communication and conflict, and today we'll do accountability. And so if you've been following along, you know that essentially all these things are in the realm of fostering psychological safety at work, which is when employees feel included, safe to learn, safe to contribute, and safe to challenge the status quo. And so when people feel like they're in an environment that feels very safe in a number of ways, including feeling structured, they know what's happening and when, they know who to go to and when, there's a conflict resolution process. Leaders are safe people who can attune to them. Leaders don't have any personality disorders that make it so they're not able to attune. All these types of things help people feel safe so they can be more innovative, more creative, more engaged, and they'll stay there. They'll stay at your place longer. So here's the section from our self-assessment tool. And so you can grab your journal and pen, and I'll give you a second to do that. And you're going to rate each of these items on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is low, or scale from 1 to 5. 1 is low, 5 is high in terms of how much you have this in your workplace. Okay. So item 1. And so you're going to want to give yourself a score for how much you relate to this or how little you relate to this. Projects are well defined, which may include project plans, assigned tasks, and stated deadlines. Projects are well defined, which may include project plans, assigned tasks, and stated deadlines. Someone is in charge of keeping the team accountable to project deadlines. Someone is in charge of keeping the team accountable to project deadlines. 3, deadlines are realistic and established collaboratively with team input. Deadlines are realistic and established collaboratively with team input. 4, when someone raises an ethical issue, it is addressed in an appropriate way by a manager or someone from human resources. When someone raises an ethical issue, it is addressed in an appropriate way by a manager or someone from human resources. And I feel that the people with whom I work act in ways that are ethical. I feel that the people with whom I work act in ways that are ethical. And so you can look and see how you've scored and make some inferences as to what that may mean. But for sure, go to our website, tend-collective.com, and you can download the whole PDF with the scoring rubric. So we'll start with project management, right? This particular wedge of the wheel looks at 2 different things. We're looking at kind of on a micro level, do people know who they're accountable to with the tasks that they're doing? And is someone in charge? Does someone have the authority to say, hey, we're behind, I need you to do this? And is that person like respected? So that's the project management side. The other part of accountability is like, do you, and this one really, right, this whole wedge is really about trust and authority. Some things that we've talked about in previous weeks. But then the other piece is like, is there someone at your organization keeping people accountable from committing abuse against employees? And so these are both areas where I see a lot of nonprofits, agencies, um, and organizations. And I would say, especially with nonprofits and government agencies, I am seeing these areas skipped. For some reason, in the private sector, they do a pretty good job of project management. That's been my experience. Maybe you've had a different experience, and feel free to comment if you've had a same or different experience. But I've worked for a lot of nonprofits, and they often skip the project management role. I don't know why that is. Actually, I would be really curious to know why. Um, but the project manager is going to be really, really, really important for keeping projects well defined and within scope and moving forward and making sure, following up with people and saying, hey, you said you were going to do X, Y, and Z by Friday. How's that going? Did you do that? And keeping the team accountable. And without that, I have consulted with nonprofits that just feel so stressed because it's just chaos. We don't know what we're doing. It hasn't been well defined. We don't know what our deliverables are. The deliverables are unrealistic. We didn't agree to these. We don't even, we don't even use the word deliverable. We just seem to be reacting all the time. So I do see this with quite a few nonprofits I've worked with and nonprofits I've consulted for, that there doesn't seem to be a clear way forward. I suspect, and you can tell me, in comments, or you can send me a direct message. There's something called founder syndrome. And the thing about a nonprofit is that anyone can start one, anyone. And I've gotten to this place where I almost really actually try, back when I was, actually applying for other jobs and working for other employers, that I have this rule not to work for a nonprofit that was still run by its founder, because founders are often the most passionate people to change the world and do something good. And then they're not always the same people that have great management skills. And so they might be the one that had the spark and the great idea, and they did all this stuff and they got the funding and they started the 501c3 and they hired the team. And then, oh, shoot, they don't have project management skills. And I think that's why it gets skipped a lot of the time, because of how a nonprofit gets started and who starts them. And so you could tell me if you disagree wildly, let me know. I don't know why for government agencies it's skipped. Maybe it's like seen as a frivolous expense. I'm not sure. I am not sure. But you either need to train all your employees to have this skill set, or you need to hire, a full-time employee, or you need to hire a contractor to manage these projects, because it is so stressful. And let me see, here we go. So I like this version. And anytime that we're like breaking the brain into just three parts, it's an oversimplification, big time. But it's just, we could be here for years, talking about all the different specifics in the brain. So we have to simplify it to really think about what's happening, which is that in this picture, they're saying, okay, there's this part of your smart brain, the part that can make rational decisions, the part that can be creative, the part that can work with other people, the part that can show up to work and say, I want to do this, and then actually get it done, that executive functioning. Okay. So that's what they're calling the smart brain. And when we don't feel safe, which includes that structure, like we feel trusted by the people around us, we know what we're doing and when and why, it's going to be really, really, really impossible to access the smart brain. We're basically like, that chaos in our brain is going to make it so that we can't seem to, we've all had that feeling, right? Where we sit down and we feel frazzled and we're like, I don't know. I have too many things and I don't know what to start with. And then we don't get anything done. And so that's why we have to work with the brains that we have and set up all these structures and processes, so that when someone sits down at their desk, it's just easy. Oh yeah, I need to do this today. And so Some, if not all, employees need to have a project management skill set, which just means setting up the structure of the work so that it's not chaos, so that our brain can work optimally. Okay. And I think maybe some people just think, well, like I'm a critical thinker, so probably I'm intuitively really good at project management, but that's not how it works. And people do the same thing with communication. Well, I have a mouth and I can talk, so I'm good at communicating. These things are skill sets, and you have to actually get trained. And I have seen this happen over the last 20 years, I would say, where employers are not investing in the skills of their employees anymore. And you can, let me know if you've seen that trend as well. Um, if you're watching this and you have some power where you work, it's really important to train your employees. They're not just going to come in and automatically be a great project manager or a great communicator. These things, you have to offer these trainings. If you want great employees, you have to train your employees. So there's frameworks and processes that have been developed, like the Agile framework for project management, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and they've been developed, they work. Corporations are already using them, tech startups are using them. And then, the nonprofit and government sectors seem to just be a little bit behind from what I've observed. Um, this is a slide that I've come back to a lot, which is um, trying to get things just right. So I just want us to keep it in mind, that a lot of times we work in environments that have really high control. So there's micromanagers. There's these often tend to come with a lot of chaos because there's someone at the top with a personality disorder, and they're controlling and they're creating false urgency and they're making people run around and do their bidding. And that feels really out of control. But then on the other side is the neglectful workplace, where you're not like it's almost like, okay, but I do need a little bit of management here, and they're not following up, they're not making sure you're doing okay, they don't know what you need, and they both feel terrible, both of these types of work environments. So I just want us to kind of have this visual in mind, that it's possible to be in a high control environment and a neglectful environment and feel equally bad, even though they're very different. I might come back to this one. Um, so I wanted to talk about some barriers to accountability. I actually, yeah, let's see. This slide is where I like to talk about the way that trauma can show up in the workplace as a barrier to creating the kind of change that you want. And the thing about our work at 10 Collective is that we bring in the trauma-informed lens and the lens of adverse childhood experiences science. And from what I've seen, and I can give a couple examples here in terms of accountability in the workplace. Um, I worked in my early, when I was in college at a coffee shop. And when I quit that job, and I'll never forget it, this is an example of an leadership accountability. When I quit that job, the owner of the cafe sat me down and wanted to know, did something happen? I know I hired this person that some people complained about. Was it because of this? Could you tell me why? Is there anything else? And I really, really trusted him because he was a very warm and trusting person. I quit for a myriad of reasons. Some of them related to that person that he just hired to, whatever. Um, but some of them not. And I really felt that accountability was important to him. And actually, over the years, I saw his business expand and expand and expand, and he opened more and more and more locations. And that didn't surprise me at all. He tended to keep his employees a long time. So the people that I worked there with didn't really quit; they stayed a long time. Even for some of the students who tend to be very transient workers. And And that's because we could trust him, that if we had an issue, we could come to him and he would believe us and he would care and he would do something about it and we wouldn't get blamed. And that to me was very, very, very early on in my working life, so that I had this real felt sense of this is what it feels like to work in a place where you're trusted and there's accountability and the person at the top cares and they want to know why you're upset. They're not going to blame you and they're going to talk to the appropriate person. So how many folks have had that experience? um, yeah, it can, unfortunately can be a little rare these days, which is really sad. um, and then I just want to look at my notes because I wrote down, what was like the bad example. um, so let me, I can move out of this for a second. So the bad example was working in a place. This was more recent in my life, and part of the inspiration to start 10 Collective. So this was where there was abuse happening against employees, and many of us approached HR saying, "Hey, we're noticing this really bad behavior. We're noticing that these abuses are happening. It doesn't feel good." And oftentimes, what it feels like is actually just confusing. It just feels confusing. um, oh, and I just saw Wes, thanks for the comment about the graphic. That's great. I'm glad that's useful. Um, and so it feels really confusing. And I've been, so as I've been doing these webinars, people have been reaching out to me with real life examples from their life, which always hurts my heart a little bit because there's so much abuse happening. Um, and Wes, if you're still watching, I'm curious if that's happening to you, where people reach out to you because you're also a consultant in this space, and it's just gotten really, really bad out there. But people reach out and share their stories, and so this I just heard from someone else that happened to them, and the exact thing happened to me too, which is that you reach out to HR or to an ombudsman, a mediator, and they want to hear both sides equally. And this is such a classic mediator response. It needs to be a compromise of both sides. But the problem is there is oftentimes of one person at fault. And so when you're trying to say, let's take both sides into account, it really always ends up harming one of the people. And it's typically whoever has less power that gets harmed. And for some reason, because I do hear this over and over and over and over and over and over, because I run the job grief support group, which by the way is starting up again in September. And people say the same thing. Well, they kept telling me, sometimes you have to just suck it up and work with difficult people in your career, and you need to figure it out, and you need to compromise too. And I really just think this is a really bad process and really bad advice. And I don't know yet. I'm working. I want to know, why don't companies fire their sociopaths and narcissists? I don't know. I don't know why that is. There's something in our society where we don't like seeing people as being bad, which is actually a great thing that we do. Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book about this idea, Talking to Strangers, where he talks about we want to live in a world where we trust everyone. If we lived in a world where we didn't trust everyone, this would be a really, really bad world. It wouldn't be good for any of us. But unfortunately, when we go out and we trust everyone and we really think, oh, I can assume that both sides are equal here, instead of seeing maybe one person has a personality disorder. That's what we're projecting the world that we want to see onto everyone else. But unfortunately, in every toxic work situation I've had, someone has low self-awareness and sort of high manipulation. So these criteria that fall into narcissism, sociopathy, and it's not to say that every one of them maybe has like a full personality disorder, but that self-awareness is really low and the propensity to change is really low. And so these are the types of people that, Harvard Business Review says over and over and over and over again, you got to get rid of them because they're costing your organization a lot of money. People are leaving, people are taking sick days, people are doing lower quality work, and yet when someone approaches HR and says, hey, I really don't feel good. This really doesn't feel good to work with this person. And HR or your ombudsman is saying, let's figure out a compromise. Well, that's not going to work. And so when it comes to accountability, um, again, like I said before, you have to have that project accountability. Do the tasks relate to the project plan? Does the project plan relate to the mission? Did we all form this as a team and agree on it so that we're all working together? We know what we're doing. And so, okay, and I've got another comment from Wes. Unfortunately, it does happen often. Yeah, yeah. Profits over people enables bad behavior. Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. Thanks so much for your engagement. Yeah, I have so much to say on that. That's why, like, and at the end of the day, though, I mean, by treating people this way, right, you're losing money. So that's the ironic part is like, we can't keep doing this because ultimately it's not good for business to dehumanize people in the workplace. So when it comes to accountability, there's that project accountability, but then there's also this accountability, like who's making sure that the people in charge don't abuse power. And for a long time, it was very confusing to me in my head as I was like growing as a working person, a human being who works. Why is it that so many people abuse power, and why does it seem like there's so many narcissists and sociopaths at the top? But then as you get to know human dynamics and you get more and more work experiences, you see that people who have a lot of childhood trauma have really fragile egos and they're really insecure. And so they vie for these positions because they need the affirmation. And certainly for me, there have been times in my journey before I maybe got the healing that I needed, like the therapy that I needed, where my ego really needed a lot of affirmation. And I want to be like really honest about that. I would say earlier on in my career, I did need people to tell me how good or important I was or how valuable I was. Maybe not to the point of being disordered, but I think we can all look at different times and places in our lives where we really felt insecure and needed a lot of affirmation. But for people with a lot of childhood trauma, there's a big black hole where that sense of self is supposed to be. And these types of people, even though we have so much empathy, I do for them because I work in this field of helping people understand just what kind of damage that childhood trauma does and how prevalent it is. That these types of people, it really is sad. Like we know that they went through something hard in childhood, but unfortunately, the result in adulthood is that they are causing a lot of damage, a lot of damage because they need a lot. I really think imagining it as a black hole is the best possible thing we can do because with the black hole, you can keep dumping resources in, having those mediator conversations, getting them trained, giving them the promotion, giving them the compliment, but it never fills them up. Never fills them up. And there's the concept of the hungry ghost. If you're in this trauma field, well the Gabor Mate book, In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts. The hungry ghost is from Tibetan Buddhism, and it's like where we can get stuck in this realm after we die, where we have a bloated stomach and a small straw for a mouth, and we can't possibly consume enough to fill our extended stomach. And so I think it's really important to know that we work with hungry ghosts sometimes. There's a lot of trauma, and there's no amount of putting other people down or getting those words of affirmation that will ever fill up this stomach. It's a really nice visual. And so when it comes to accountability in the workplace, I'm just going to keep saying it and keep saying it and keep saying it over and over and over until we start to see change. And I love, people like Wes who are also doing this work. And I just love the work that you're doing, Wes, and others like us in this space who are saying something has to change here. You have to stop abusing your employees. But these hungry ghosts that we work with who need the affirmation. And so they always position themselves into positions of power so they can control others. They can get confirmation of their work, of their worth. They're ruining your organization. And it's really, really, it cannot be overstated. Really quickly here. So barriers to accountability, no processes in place so employees feel unsafe, no point person to keep people accountable. The point person doesn't have any authority. So they're saying, well, you said you were going to do these 5 things, but no one, maybe you have a toxic leader who's undermining that project manager. So constantly saying, oh, don't listen to so-and-so, or micromanaging so that even though you have a project manager, they're coming in and rendering it all null and void. Employers not investing in core skills. We talked about that. And then personal and workplace traumas are activated during high stress moments. So again, this is where you could bring in like, we do offer training on self-regulation, trauma-informed self-regulation. We especially love to work with managers and leaders because it's possible that, just like I said, we may all have these hungry ghost moments where we're out there just feeding on other people's energy because of our own traumas and really causing a lot of damage. So, but as long as you're someone that it's not fully into the disordered realm, these are actually habits that we can change and we can get better and do better in the workplace. So what we recommend is to do an organizational assessment. Please feel free to use our tool, our self-assessment tool. You can use it within your organization. If you want a neutral third party to administer it, just reach out to me, and our costs are pretty reasonable, actually. Evaluate your processes and procedures. We talked about this last time, but it certainly still applies here. You're going to want to have these standard operating procedures and documents and processes, and make sure that the instructions are clear. It's a huge part of accountability. Make sure that you have one or more project managers. And we do have someone within our network of consultants at Tend who you can hire to help you manage your projects. Make sure that you have project plans in writing. Make sure that the check-ins are happening at regular intervals, weekly, daily, right? This is where we talk about having huddles. And employees need to know the standard procedure for their projects. Who do they go to first? What do they do next? We recommend training your employees to grow their skills, coaching your managers, again, because of those trauma responses that come up. And then fire your narcissist and sociopaths, no big deal. So the high cost of doing nothing, it's really high. It's really high. So every time a caseworker leaves an agency, the loss costs the agency 30 to 200% of the former employee's annual salary. And high turnover in the child welfare system negatively impacts not only the agency, but more importantly, children and families. One study cited found that youth were more reluctant to trust others as a result of losing a caseworker, which can negate years of work to build trust. And I don't think we talk about this enough just in terms of regular businesses. It is really hard to trust people at work if there's so much turnover. Trust is real and it takes time to build with people and teams. And if your organization has a really high turnover, the quality of work is going to suffer because that trust is going to go down. So work stressors are a leading cause of chronic illness, contributing to burnout, depression, anything you can think of, making it the 5th leading cause of death. The 5th leading cause of death, workplace stress. So, we recommend, trying to see if you can be the change. I honestly, so I've been working with leaders as a coach for about 10 years. I don't think I've ever seen an organization turn down a request. Ever. I don't think I've ever seen it. So when I'm talking to someone and I'm saying, why don't you ask your work if they'll pay for it? And they ask, the workplace always says yes. Now, I don't think I've ever seen a no, like ever. You just have to ask. Low to no cost resources. So doing this audit internally Also, this is a course that I took to increase my project management skills. Honestly, I wish I'd taken it sooner. I was like, wow, I can't believe I didn't know these things beforehand. I was really bad at this, and I was probably stressing everybody out because I didn't understand how to manage a project. So this is offered on Coursera, very, very affordable. I can't even remember if it was like $20 a month, and it took me maybe 4 months to get through the class, something like that. Really, really nice skill set, really well organized. And there's all sorts of stuff like this, all sorts of resources. Um, Invest in training, for especially for your staff who manage other people. And you could hire us, you could hire another company to train your staff on project management skills. Um, Higher cost would be hiring a full-time project manager or a project manager as a contractor. And again, we have someone available that you could hire. One-on-one coaching will see the biggest change because people have personal histories that create limiting beliefs, and it's an investment. So you're investing in helping someone grow within your organization, and then they will give back. So how can we help? There's so many different ways. We do trainings on trauma-informed care, psychological safety. We can do a deeper dive on any of these topics. We can start with an organizational assessment at your company, see where you guys are at, see what the needs are. We do all sorts of stuff, leadership development, manager coaching. We can even help you hire. And so this is all of our services. We, of course, offer just the regular stuff, the program creation, the program implementation and evaluation. So I have a master's in public health. We have a master's of education as an advisor, a master's of public administration. Bree, who is also working full-time, has a master's in social work. So this is a really, really strong skill set that, we could do a literature review to help you justify funding, all sorts of stuff. And we know that being able to rest within a bubble of care in our workplaces, where we spend so many hours, 40 hours a week at least, gives us so much strength and resilience. Like, just think about a time that you had a workplace situation that felt really good to you, and the foundation that set up for your whole life feels really good. That's what we're trying to create. So reach out, go to our website, send me an email. We have a form on there, a Hire Us form that you can fill out and set up a call. So thanks for tuning in, and hopefully we can create more caring workplaces together. And I'll see you. We have a couple of events coming up. So next week we're talking with Sharon Hirsch from Prevent Child Abuse. Oh, they're the Positive Childhood Alliance. We're going to talk about that name change next week with her, which is amazing, in North Carolina. And then we have another event with Danielle coming up the week after that about making sure that we're supporting people who work with families. So yeah, we have great events coming up. I think they're all here on LinkedIn, so you can go to our page and click on events and register for those. And I hope to see you soon. Thanks so much for tuning in.